Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the world of pottery and lapidary arts. In today's video, I'm going to take you on a journey as we go about creating a cabochon from scratch. We'll be covering everything from shaping that stone to creating a brilliant polish. So let's dive right in. Before we start, let's quickly go over the materials that we're going to be using for today's project. Firstly, you're going to need some kind of a rough stone, preferably a gemstone of your choice. And I've got this rough cut right here, ready to go. Additionally, you'll need some of those other grits, like these right here. We'll be using these for the shaping process as well as the polishing process. We'll be starting out with the old 80 grit, and we'll be working our way up to higher grits as we progress to get that perfect polish that we're looking for. And it's always good to practice safety, so don't forget the good old safety goggles. You definitely want to be using these, as well as some good gloves that we're going to be using for this project. We want to make sure we protect those hands. And the last thing to check off on the good old safety list, let's make sure we're working in a well-ventilated area. We don't want to be breathing in any of that gemstone dust. So now that we've got all of our materials ready, let's move on to shaping our cabochon. And as mentioned earlier, we'll begin by using this 80 grit diamond disc. This coarse grit will help us remove those sharp edges, as well as create that basic shape for our stone. So I've already gone through and I've applied this stick to the stone that we're going to be working on. Basically what I've done is I've taken some epoxy and I've glued it on. If you've got a daubing station, you're already one step ahead of me, but I had to go the poor man's route and use some epoxy, glue that on, and then we'll bust it off after we are completed with it. But that's going to make life so much easier when it comes to working on a cabochon. So this is going to allow us to pivot that rock around and keep it from standing idle in one position for too long. We definitely don't want that to happen. So we're going to be able to rock this around, pivot it in whatever direction we need it to be in, and just keep the thing moving around. Now, is this a necessity to have for your project? You really don't need it, but if you don't have this, it just means your hands are going to be a lot closer to the wheel. And that's another good reason to have those gloves, just in case you get too close to the grit. So it's time to start the old lap grinder up. But first, let's check and make sure we got some good water in the reservoir. Yep, looks like that's full. Got my safety goggles. Make sure those are on. And the gemstone we're going to be working on. Everything looks good. All right, let's make sure we got our water running here. I got a lot of hard water out here, so sometimes it gets plugged up easy for me. Now for this step, since we're using the 80 grit, we definitely want to make sure we have a good water flow going though. This thing's going to consume material really quick. All right, and all we're going to do now is just start to kind of round this out, make sure we get it to the shape we want. Oh wow, that's looking really beautiful. We got this all nice and rounded out. Now all we got to do is knock these corners out. The one thing I like to do with this is I'll start with the long axis and I'll work my way to the shorter axis. And what that basically means is we're going to rock it this way to this way. And we're going to get that nice and domed out in one direction. And I'm going to go back in the other direction and start to dome at the short axis. So it'll go back and forth this way. That's going to leave us with 4 corners. Once we get all that completed out, we're going to knock those 4 corners out. It's going to make it really easy. So let's get started on that. And you can see how it's starting to dome itself out. You want to be careful not to go too far down. I usually like to leave about 2 millimeters along the bottom. We're getting pretty close on this side, but this side's got a little bit of a ways to go. So you can kind of see how it's starting to dome out there on the long axis. We still got some really flat points, but we'll get to those soon. So now let's start rocking it on the short axis. As you can see right here, I'm getting pretty close to that 2mm line. This gets a little bit of room to work with. I gotta be really careful now over that because, boy, that really got shaved off quick. For this step though, we're gonna just start rocking it back and forth this direction. So this step's super important now. In order to knock those corners out, we want to make sure we're rocking this rock all around. It's going to take a little while, but we'll definitely get there. Well, this looks pretty good. Just take your time, make sure you get the shape that you want, but for right now, I think it's time to move on to the next step. Alright, so we've just switched out to our 180 grit, and we're ready to start smoothing this gemstone. And again, just keep rocking that rock around. Alright, as you can see, we've switched to the red pad for the final refinement of this stone. Alright guys, so we're on the final stage for this polishing. Oh boy. I've got already my felt pad installed right here, and I've got it laced with some aluminum oxide that's going to help us really make this shine pop out. You can use this felt pad pretty dry if you want, but I usually like to add a little bit of water to it. Not too much. So I got my squirt bottle with distilled water in here. I'm just going to spritz a little bit onto the pad. Kind of rub it in. And we'll use a very low speed setting of 2, maybe 3 on this particular machine, nothing too crazy. Just let it kind of glide back and forth, just like that. Beautiful. All right, now for the big reveal. Wow, look at that shine. All right, now for the fun part is always getting this stick off. And of course the stick comes off perfect, but yeah. So this is where things get a little bit interesting. I switched back to my 80 grit disc right here, and we're just gonna grind this thing down. So we got our nice cabochon right here. Well guys, if you've made it this far following along, congratulations. You should have a really beautiful cabochon in your hands right now. And remember, that journey from rough stone to a polished gem takes a lot of practice, patience, and attention to detail. The beauty about this process is you can use this on any gemstone or mineral that you find. It works on a wide variety, so the possibilities are unlimited. Let me know what kind of projects you've been doing through watching this video. And be sure to let me know how I did on this polishing job. If you've got any questions or comments, be sure to leave a comment below, and I'll get back with you. All right, my friends, it's been a lot of fun. Till next time.